This video is sponsored by Skillshare.
Stop buying plastic plants. Hey there, so today we're going to talk about 10 beginner plant growing tips for prospective plant parents. If you've ever thought that you cannot be a plant parent, that you can't keep a plant alive, I hope to change your mind by the end of this video. I don't really think there's such a thing as a green thumb. I feel like it's just knowledge is power. And so here are my 10 tips that I wish I knew when I had started buying plants. The first tip I have is to know thyself. Are you somebody who is going to want to set it and forget it, like leave a plant neglected for a while, just look at it, have it be pretty? Or are you somebody who just loves to dote over plants? You love the idea of taking care of something, you get a real thrill out of it. If you are like the kind of person who loves to dote over plants, you would love something that loves to be watered frequently, needs a lot of care. But if you're somebody who like maybe forgets about stuff, you want something that's easier to take care of, that's more forgiving if you forget to water it for a few weeks. If you are in touch with the person that you are, you can match yourself up with the right plant. You need to take into consideration your environment. Now, we're talking about your home environment. Most of the plants that we are having grow in our homes are tropical plants. Some grow at the understories of the forest floor where they don't get a lot of sunlight, they get like dappled sunlight. And some live where there's like direct sunlight and they love it and they need lots of light and heat. You need to decide what kind of environment you can give your plant. You can definitely supplement your environment with additional light and heat and humidity, but you really don't want to do those things in the very beginning. You just want to assess your environment. Know which ways your windows are facing. There's north-facing windows, west, south, east. The west-facing windows tend to be the afternoon light. The northern windows get that beautiful morning light, but you don't get a lot of light all during the day. The east windows, I feel like get like kind of medium light. I'm not sure. I know that southern windows that face south get the most light most of the day, and that light is actually really hot. So you want to put the plants that love that in those windows. So make sure you know which direction your windows are facing. That can actually change what kind of plant you bring into your home. I know that the temptation is to get the plant that is like the prettiest, and I did that a lot. I was like, oh, that one's so pretty, I'm gonna bring it home. But sometimes I wasn't prepared to give it the environment that it needed, and maybe it needed a lot more humidity than I was willing to provide, or maybe I live in an area where it's not humid at all. Like if you live in Arizona or another dry place, you're not gonna want a lot of the humid and loving plants because they're not gonna be happy there. Number 3, no plant, and I mean no plant, is entirely unkillable. I really hate those graphics that are like, these are the plants you can't kill. That's a sham, that's a total lie. You can kill anything if you work hard enough. Instead of thinking a plant is unkillable, I like to think of a plant as being more resilient, it bounce back more from stress, and it's more forgiving if you neglect it or like maybe overwater it or something. Some of the best plants I recommend for beginners are actually anything in the philodendron family, particularly Philodendron hederaceum. These plants come in so many different shapes and colors and sizes. There's Philodendron Brazil. There's just plain old green Philodendron hederaceum. This is actually a cutting that my mom gave me from her mother plant. There's a Philodendron micans, which is like a fuzzy philodendron. That one's really beautiful. I find that philodendrons are one of the most forgiving kinds of plants that exist in like all of the world, because if you either neglect them for a while or if you like tend to like over baby them and they get stressed, they tend to bounce back the best, I feel like, of all the plants I've ever grown. If you're feeling particularly fancy, you can even get a little Philodendron gloriosum. Isn't that pretty? Look at that heart-shaped leaf. Isn't that cute? Another really forgiving genus of plants is Monstera deliciosa, and all the Monstera family actually. I find Monstera to be so easy to grow. They're very forgiving. They love you. And I find that there are so many interesting varieties aside from the Monstera deliciosa that's on everyone's Instagram. There are so many interesting other varieties like Adansonii, Siltepecana, there's Monstera peru, so many beautiful Monstera that are super easy to take care of. If you are a set it and forget it person and you don't want to dote over your plants, snake plants, also known as, well, they used to be known as Sansevieria, but they're actually Dracaena. Whatever, snake plants are super easy to take care of. All you have to do is ignore them and they love it. it. You can get really cute small baby ones, or you can even get big ones that look like green fire coming out of pots. They're so pretty. And they thrive on neglect. The longer you don't water this one, the better they like you. If you are someone who loves to water and just loves to dote over plants, then a spathiphyllum or a peace lily might be for you. They're very dramatic when they need to be watered, but they do bounce back really quickly. I usually don't let them get to a very dramatic state because I think that stresses the plants a little bit, but they do bounce back within a matter of a few hours, and it is quite fun to watch. Golden pothos and marble queen pothos and anything from the epipremnum family they're okay, but I don't honestly think they're the easiest things in the world to raise, and I think they're relatively easy to overwater. So I would recommend starting with either philodendron monstera or a peace lily or a snake plant. Number 4, plants don't have a schedule, and neither should you when it comes to watering them. I hate to burst your bubble, but there is no watering schedule. I think watering schedules are a sham. Plants are dynamic living things. During the summer, they may take up a lot more water from the substrate they're in, the soil they're in, than in winter when they don't need as much water and they're not growing as much. So you have to really go by and inspect your plants periodically and see if they need water. I hate to tell you that, but it's just the way things are. But the more you get to know your plant, the more you'll get to see the signals, and the more you'll be able to communicate better with your plant. It will let you know if it needs water or not. In some succulent leaves, the leaves may bend a little easier, or they may be a little easier to squeeze, and in some of the thinner leaves, they may curl or change shape a little bit and be flimsy to handle when you touch them. Another really easy way to know if you're a beginner and not sure when to water your plants is to get a moisture meter. There's no shame in that. They're really inexpensive. They're probably like 10 bucks. Go and grab one, and basically you stick it in the soil and it measures how moist the soil is. And when you use this, I would place it all around the pot. Don't just put it in one side, because there could be moisture on one side of the pot but not moisture on the other, maybe where your roots are. A moisture meter was so helpful for me in the beginning when I was first learning to take care of plants, and there's no shame in that game. Get a moisture meter. I hardly ever use it anymore, but it's a really helpful tool if you're learning when and when not to water your plants. And speaking of watering plants, don't just put a little bit of water in that pot and call it a day and walk away. Make sure you water your plants thoroughly so that water comes out the bottom of the pot. Hopefully your pot has a hole in it. We water thoroughly for a few reasons. First, to flush out any of the weird stuff in the soil that gets in there sometimes. Sometimes stuff builds up and you want to flush it out. And if you don't water thoroughly, the roots won't grow all the way down to the bottom of the pot. The plant can become really top heavy, fall over. It's a bad time. Okay, bonus tip, make sure your pots have holes at the bottom. Don't let your roots just sit in water at the bottom of the soil. It will cause your plant to possibly get root rot and kill the plant. So make sure there's good drainage and it can go out the bottom of the pot, and make sure there's a hole there. Don't put it in like a mug or something. If you do, drill a hole at the bottom so water can escape. Number 5, another watering tip, do not give your plants extremely cold or extremely hot water. Both are uncomfortable for your plant, and both can either stress your plant or kill them. Do not cook your roots and do not freeze your roots. I hate those orchid tags that say put a block of ice on the top of your orchid, but that's the fastest way to kill. Don't do that. Just water them. Just take the little pot out, put some water in there, watch it drain out, and then put it back in the pot. That's all you gotta do. Don't no. Don't do that. Your plants deserve better than that. Number 6, pests. They happen, but it's not the end of the world. You can get past it. The reality of having plants in your home is that you may have some plant pests eventually in your home. You're not even sure how you bring them in. Sometimes they come in on your groceries, they come in on your dog, they come in on your shoe, or they climb in through the window, whatever. It's just something that happens. The most common are mealybugs, spider mites, thrips. I don't want to say thrips out loud. But don't fret if you get a plant pest. They can be defeated. However, if the infection is bad enough, especially if it's thrips or spider mites, I recommend, if it's real bad, just throw the plant out the door. If the infection is bad enough, it can spread to your entire plant collection, and you don't want that because then it gets really hard to control. And friends, there is no such thing as a green thumb. You're gonna kill a plant inevitably if you have enough of them over time. The best thing you can do is basically learn everything you can. Speaking of learning, I want to thank this video sponsor, Skillshare. Skillshare is an online learning community where millions of people come together to take the next step in their creative journey, with thousands of inspiring classes for creative and curious people and wannabe plant parents on topics including entrepreneurship, cooking, interior design, and yes, even plant keeping. I've loved Christopher Griffin for so long. He's so fabulous. And his class, Plants at Home, Uplift Your Spirit and Your Space, is so wonderful if you are a beginner plant parent and want to get your skills on point. He offers some great tips on setting up a routine for you and your plants and what to do if there's root rot. Propagating is one of my favorite things to do, because if you're bored with your plants, you can just clone them, and that's fun. I learned so much from him, and now I call my plants green queens, and that's amazing. Skillshare is also incredibly affordable when compared to in-person classes and workshops. The first 1,000 of my subscribers to click the link in the description will get a 1-month free trial of Skillshare, so you can start exploring your creativity today. Not tomorrow. Right now, today. Thank you so much to Skillshare for sponsoring this video. Tip number 7 is one that a lot of people don't think about, is that plants do need occasional dusting because their leaves get dusty. Not because it's like aesthetically displeasing, but because it interferes with their ability to photosynthesize correctly. In order to give your plant queens the best chance at life, you should keep their leaves free of dust and debris. Dust also attracts spider mites and other pests, so I try to keep my plants as dust free as possible. And if you dusting plants and cleaning plants is actually quite satisfying. You just spray them with a little water, and you take a microfiber cloth or some other soft cloth and just dust the leaves, and it's very satisfying. You don't believe me? Just do it. Do it, you'll change your mind. The other thing I wish I had known is that low light plants, kind of a scam. The conclusion I've come to is that all plants need light, and that low light plants, like plants that can survive in a closet or whatever, they don't exist. They maybe can survive there, like they're not going to die on you, and they'll do as little as possible to stay alive, but they're not going to thrive in a really low light space. So I say, if possible, give your plant as much light as it wants. I mean, don't go to extremes and put a plant in a southern window if it doesn't really like 8 hours of direct sunlight, but a few hours of direct sunlight is definitely going to be beneficial for a lot of plants. I had a ZZ plant that did not thrive for a long time. Like, this thing the fronds were dying off. I thought, I am the worst plant parent because I can't keep this thing alive. I put it outside as a last ditch effort and gave it direct light and heat. The thing grew like 4 new fronds. So low light plants, a total scam. Give your plant some light. It'll thank you for it. If you're prepared to offer your plant a little supplemental light in the winter if you live in the Northeast, it would totally not hate you for it. Number 9, you can feed your plants, but you can actually over-fertilize your plants and kill them. I have done it. If you're new to fertilizing plants, use an organic fertilizer, something very gentle, and don't give a lot of it to your plant. Chances are you probably don't need to fertilize your plants at first when you get them because they come with fertilizer in the soil, but if you are going to get into a routine of feeding your plants, I would do it. I would start very, very slowly, and I would start it with the gentlest fertilizer you can. I have definitely killed a plant, fertilized it to death, and it was the saddest thing I've ever witnessed in my entire life. The last tip I have is don't give up on a plant if it seems like it's going to die and you can't save it. Occasionally there is a plant that's just gonna die and you can't save it. There's nothing you can do about it, but sometimes you can give your plant a second chance at life and it'll love you for it. This Calathea or Bifolia was really struggling for the last 3 years that I had it, and the nail in the coffin was when we went out of town and the heat went off in the house and it got really cold, and when I came back it looked like this and it never recovered. And and it had been sort of problematic for the past 3 years. I hadn't really thrived and I was about to give up on it, but I was like, you know what? I'm gonna give it one last chance. So I cut everything down to the soil, and now it looks like this. It looks so much healthier than it's ever looked in its entire life. And I have 2 new leaves coming up on the side there. Isn't that cute? So sometimes you can bring them back. Don't give up on the babies. Plants are very, very resilient. And I respect them for that. And you should talk to them and love on them. I hope that these tips were helpful for you. Plants change your environment so much. They bring a very noticeable warmth and je ne sais quoi to a space. I found there's nothing warms up a space and makes it feel more alive and comforting, and I guess brings more hygge to your life than a live plant. So I want you to right now stop buying plastic plants, buy one of these, and make your life better. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you next time.